Hello everyone. In this lecture, we will learn about the procedure of inspector. What is the function of inspector? Before going to learn about the functions or role of the drugs inspectors in India, on this day, there is Chandrayaan 3 has been launched by the
Three,
ISRO
two,
team. So I
one,
want to congratulate
zero.
ISRO team for successfully placing the
Plus 5
Chandrayaan
seconds.
3 in the moon's
Liftoff normal
orbit.
P1
The
Here
tracking.
we have a
Chandrayaan 3
majestic
project
liftoff of
Part-2
is
tracking.
LV-3M4 rocket
successfully
carrying India's
launched
prestigious
today,
Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft.
right?
P2 tracking.
So and it
प्रज्वलन
takes
और
another
सफलतापूर्ण
Update to
उत्थापन
performance log.
LVM-3
20 to
M4
30
रॉकेट का
days to get landed
यह
on the
भीम का
moon.
रॉकेट
Hope it
आसमान को
will
चीरते
land
हुए
very easily onto the moon. So I wish their mission will accomplish, right? So at the end of the or last week of the August. So I congratulate again for successfully placing the Chandrayaan 3 in the orbit of moon. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, right? So let's begin with our lecture. In our lecture, so this content may not be available in other platforms because since graduation, so I was in search in the every social media, so I couldn't able to get that content. So what exactly DI drugs inspector their role? See, whenever a drug inspector enter into the sale premises or enter into the manufacturing premise, so what drugs inspector does? So let's learn about the how drugs are being regulated by the drugs inspector or regulating authority. So whenever drugs inspector, first how the drugs inspector gets appointed or recruited in concerned states or by the UPS to the concerned drug control department or CDSCO. Drugs inspector, after the recruiting the procedure, and drug inspector or drug control officer, the name is going to change drugs inspector to drug control officer, right? So this drug control officer or drugs inspector is appointed under section 21 of Drugs and Cosmetic Act 1940 and rules passed in the 1945. So whenever the drug control officer or drugs inspector enter into the sales premises, so I'll by this you can able to understand what are the forms is going to used by the drugs inspector, right? You can also learn the functionality of the drugs inspector, and you also learn the what are the forms to be remember for the examination purpose. So better you understand these forms along with the functions roles of the drugs inspector. So instead of mugging the roles of the drug inspector, so I'll make you understand in this lecture very clearly. So whenever drugs inspector enter into the sales premises, or they may see syrups, right? So they may see capsules, right? So all capsules, liquids, and all the ointments. So if the drug inspector feels it's a doubtful quality, if drug inspector feels that it is a doubtful quality of the drug, so reason to believe that drug inspector believe that if that is doubtful quality, what drug inspector does, the drug inspector definitely lifts the sample, right? Lifts the sample whenever enters into the sales premises, lift the sample or collects the sample, collects the samples of drugs. While taking the sample of the drug, you need to give the intimation to the concerned shopkeeper that you are taking sample, or drug inspector taking sample for test oblique analysis to ascertain the quality of the drug, right? So collects the sample of drugs in the form. So you can learn the forms here, right? So which form you will be taking the, or drug inspector taking the sample, form 17, right? Form 17. right? In case of cosmetic items, a drug inspector will issue the cos form form 10, right? Cos form 10 is the samples to be lifted for the cosmetic rules has been enforced in the 2020 December. DI collects a sample in form 17, right? So now, while collecting the samples, DI is supposed to give the compensation to that sample, right? Compensation would be issued. Drug inspector will take the cancel check and invoice, drug invoice, and these will be submitted for the reimbursement purpose in the concerned department, in their department, right, where the drug inspector is working. Sometimes that shop is may not be licensed, right? May not be licensed. Sometimes DI has to seize the drugs or from the unlicensed premises, right? So for in that case, the compensation would be compensation of samples. So compensation, so in that case, the compensation would not be paid to the concerned shopkeeper since he is not holding the drug license. So in that case, form 17A would be issued. Form 17A would be issued. Suppose if the drug is doubtful quality, if the drug is doubtful quality, so he lifts the sample. In that case, he lifts the sample and he freezes the sample, freeze the quantity of the drugs. So whatever the quantity that shopkeeper has, that would be freezed for 20 days of time in the form of form 15 would be issued to the shopkeeper that those drugs or whatever the doubtful quality drugs you should not dispose of until receiving of the test report of the collected samples. Clear? So until unless if the sample reports does not comes, right, does not received by the drug inspector, doubtful quality drugs should not be disposed of or not to sell for further. These drugs would be freezed, and after receiving the report, this concerned drug inspector would be intimating if the sample is passed, if it is sample is standard quality, then drug inspector will be informing to the shopkeeper. If the sample is not of standard quality, right? So this form 50 for the freezing, right, freeze कर दिया, freeze करने के लिए form 15 would be issued for the freezing of the drugs. In that case, if the after collecting the samples, the drug inspector would be sending the drug samples, one portion sent to gout analyst. So gout analyst को भेजने के लिए, so drug inspector will send sample portion along with the form 18. Form 18 is a memorandum will be issued to the government analyst while sending the sample. So in that form 18, sample details would be mentioned. Okay. Now the government analyst will be testing the sample, right? Testing the concerned drug sample and receiving or giving the report, testing report on the form. Test report in the form 13. The test report would be issued in the form 13 by the government analyst. Next, if the report is standard, if the report is standard quality with which is the sample test testing of the sample, the result of the sample, if it is within limits, then the standard procedure, right? The standard procedure is after Form 13, receiving of the Form 13 to the DI, that DI will intimate to the shopkeeper that form, along with the Form 13, a covering letter, right, will be issued to the shopkeeper that whatever the sample collected from you is reported as standard quality. So this is the last procedure where the sample reports as a standard quality. Now, if it is not of standard quality, not of standard quality, that means the drug is substandard. Sometimes the drug content, the API content may not be detected, right? So in that case, those drugs considered as spurious. At the time, they also considered as not of standard quality. So within not range, within the, there is, the drug is not within the limits of testing. Clear? So if the drug is not of standard quality, when the reports obtained from the government analyst to the drug inspector, right? So whenever the drug reported as not of standard quality, what drug inspector does? The drug inspector will take the report and start the investigation. The drug inspector, concerned drug inspector, will start the investigation and establishes the chain connection, that from the supplier to the end consumer or to the shopkeeper where the drug inspector has collected the sample. So from this, suppose drug inspector has collected sample right at the point of A, that means this point of A might be, so might be purchased the drugs from the point of B, and this B B point might be purchased the drug from point C, and this point C might be purchased the drugs from point D. So maximum 4 to 5 chains would be observed basically. So D may be the manufacturer. D may be the manufacturer. So in this connection, right, so to establish the chain between the right supply chain from the shopkeeper to till the manufacturer, right, so this investigation will be carried out by the concerned drug inspector. If the drug is not of standard quality, whatever the freeze drug, if the drug reported as not of standard quality, the drug reported as not of standard quality, then this drug will be seized. The freeze drug will be seized. The seizure memo, the seizure form is form 16. So the drugs would be, the freeze drugs would be seized in the form 16. Clear? After connecting of supply chain to till the manufacturer, suppose if the manufacturer challenges, challenging means that that manufacturer having the confidence that the drug may be standard quality, right? So in this case, the concerned manufacturer will be giving the application to the concerned DI, whosoever the investigation officer, right, side. So he will be submitting an application to the drug inspector that I am believing that my samples are standard quality. Then drug inspector moves the application in the concerned court of law, honorable court of law, and in that condition, whatever the one more portion, right, so I'll discuss portions to be collected by the drug inspector, right, so I'll discuss him separately, so later on, right. So whatever the one portion will be issued, or whatever the portion which is there along with the investigation officer, one portion would be submitted to the magistrate, right, that concerned magistrate. judge, right? So one portion will be submitted to the magistrate. Magistrate will prepare the form 1, right? So he sends to the appellate laboratory. Appellate laboratory is CDL. And for the biologics, vaccines, etc., so the testing facility is not available CDL Calcutta, so it is sent to the CRI, Central Research Institute, Kasauli, right? So Central Research Unit CRI, it is present at the Kasauli, and CDL is present at Calcutta. So for the biologics or sera vaccines and or DNA or DNA derived products will be sent for testing to the Central Research Institute, which is present at the Kasauli, Himachal Pradesh, and CDL is present at the Kolkata, which is not non-CC1 drugs, right? So these will report, right, whether the drug is for drug after testing the drug, if these testing results are falling within the limits, right? So the testing report will be issued by the appellate laboratories will be in the form 2. So the testing report issued by the CDL or CRI appellate authority in the form 2. In the form 2, the test report will be reported on the form 2, and this form 1 along with the sealed sample portion will be issued or will be sent through the magistrate or metropolitan magistrate court, right? Metropolitan magistrate with the seal and sign of the magistrate. This one portion along with the form 1 will be sent to the CDL or CRI, and they will report the testing report. So whatever the test report reported by the appellate laboratory would be the final decision, and there is no further argument on that, right? So this, if the form is to issued reported with the standard quality, right, so there will be no punishment takes place. And if the form 2 is reported as a not of standard quality, right, in that case the concerned state or the honorable court of law will take the action on that particular manufacturer. License may be cancelled or may be convicted as per the procedure, right? Hope you might have learned these forms and the working flow of the drug inspector. Now, drug inspector, how many sample portions will be taken by the drug inspector for testing oblique analysis? Suppose if I take the sales premises first. So the drug inspector will take the samples from the sales premises, 4 samples. First sample, second sample, third sample, and fourth sample. A drug inspector will collect the samples, drug samples from the manufacturing premises. Only 3. One, second sample, third sample, right? Only 3 portions of sample portion would be collected from the concerned manufacturing unit. I'll tell you the reason, and before knowing the reason, just I'll explain the sales premises. So why 4 samples to be taken, right? So in this case, in case of in the sales premises, the first sample collected by the drug inspector will be given to the reference sample for the shopkeeper. It is first sample is the reference sample to the shopkeeper, reference sample of shopkeeper. Why the reference sample is given to the concerned shopkeeper where the drug samples drawn? Why? Because there may not be conflict in future. There should not be any conflict in future, because shopkeeper may deny that sample collected from the, if this reference sample, if suppose not been given, that concerned shopkeeper may say in future that this sample not collected from my premises. So in that case, the reference sample is provided to the shopkeeper, right? There is no conflicts happens in the future. So that is why the reference sample given to the concerned shopkeeper after drawing the drug sample. Suppose if so, portions means suppose if the dolo syrup to be drawn from the dolo 100 ml is drawing from the concerned shopkeeper for test oblique analysis, right? So in that case, why four sample is drawn, right? So four sample means four sample portion. Four sample portion means suppose dolo syrup is drawn, that means all four syrups, right? Four syrups or four bottles of syrups, right? So should be having the same batch, should be having the right, should be having the same expiry, same manufacturing date, right? So and same quantity of the samples, same quantity of the right, so drug portion should be there in that. Tablets, we may draw the syrups, we may draw the insulins, right? We may draw the ointments, we may draw the cosmetic items. Clear? So in this case, there should be whatever the portions that you are taking, that the if you are taking suppose syrup, that all four bottles of syrup should be similar batch, similar expiry date, similar manufacturing date, right? So all these should be there, right, while taking the samples, and the sample expiry should not exceed, right? So it should not be remain 2 months of expiry. That means 2 महीने के बाद वो सैंपल एक्सपायरी हो रहा है तो उसको नहीं ड्रॉ करते जनरली, क्योंकि sometimes testing facility may not be available, so which may lead to delay of the testing report, receiving of the testing report. So that is why आपको चैलेंज करने, मैन्युफैक्चरर चैलेंज करने के लिए टाइम नहीं मिल पाएगा. So that is why, so near expiry वाला कोई sample generally उठाते नहीं है. If in case if DI draws the sample, right, so if it is near expiry, so drug inspector will intimate to the concerned laboratory that this sample is expiring soon. So that is why you test it as soon as possible, or test it or treat this sample testing on priority, right? So these has to be noted on the form 18, or it will be intimated to the government analyst. Hope this is clear for you, and let's move into the our discussion, right? So one is reference sample will be given to the shopkeeper, and the second one is will be given to the government analyst, will be given to the government analyst on form 18, along with the form 18 or on form 18. So the sample details will be mentioned on the form 18, and the one portion will be sent to the government analyst for test oblique analysis or to ascertain the quality of the drug. Clear? And so where the third portion is used here, third portion, see, suppose you have drawn the sample from point A, and after reporting the NATF standard quality of the drug, dolo drug, right? So you will be asking the bill from point A, So the starting point would be investigation starting point would be the point A only. Then this point A will give the purchase bill and sales bills to you, right? So according to the purchase bill, this point A may give the purchase bill of or issued sale bill issued by the concerned firm, that is if you think the form point B. So this point B will issue the purchase sale bill to the point A, that means A, point A purchase bill would be the whatever the bill, sale bill issued by the point B, consider as a purchase bill, right? So now the point A gives the purchase bill of their purchase bill, the concerned drug purchase bill disclosure, we can say disclosure of point B, right? Point B, right? In that case, the disclosure, in that case, the third portion will be given to the disclosure, right? So to the disclosure, this third portion will be given. Why? Because this third portion will be given along with the third portion, the testing report also submitted, right, or given to the point of disclosure, right? Point of disclosure under section 25 of Drug and Cosmetic Act, right? So after giving the sample, he will authenticate that whether his firm or her firm supplied the concerned drug, that concerned NSQ drug to the A or not, right? Whether they supplied the not of standard quality drug to the point A or not. After authentication, if they admit, right, if they accept that this sample is, or this drug is sold by point B, then point B will also give the purchase bill, right? Will also give the purchase bill of concerned drug, and then this investigation will be carried to the next point. It may be point C, and likewise this supply chain will be connected, right? And the manufacturer, so till the manufacturer, this supply chain could be established, right? It would be, supply chain would be established for until the manufacturer. If suppose chain breaks in between, suppose chain breaks in between, suppose chain break at the point C, so he has given the bill, C has given bill to the C has given bill to the B, and C has accepted that he does not have the purchase bill of that concerned drug. That means he will be convicted under the Drug and Cosmetic Act. So that's why the maintaining of sale and purchase bills is very important while running the medical shop or wholesale distribution. So where the fourth portion is used, right? So suppose if the manufacturer wanted that, he believes that his drug sample, his manufactured drug sample is not of standard quality, it is standard quality. In that case, that manufacturer will move the application to the drug inspector, and drug inspector will move to the application to in the court of law, honorable court of law, and that will, the fourth portion will be sent, or for the used for the challenging purpose, that will be sent to the CDL or appellate laboratory, that CRI, and it will be reported, right? It will be reported after testing. The decision of that appellate laboratory will be the final. There will be no arguments after reporting of the appellate authority, right? Used for fourth portion, used for challenging purpose. Now you can imagine that why the manufacturing premises only three portions will be drawn. Why? Because it is, the first portion will be there is no doubt, it is given to the shopkeeper or manufacturing premises, manufacturing, maybe director, maybe proprietor, manufacturing proprietor or director, so are the authorized person, whosoever the present at the time of drawing the sample. So this first portion will be handed over to the authorized person or proprietor or to the director, right? So after this second portion will be sent to the government analyst, right? Government analyst for test oblique analysis. Now tell me, where is third portion? Where is third portion? So this third portion will not be given to the, will not be given, right? This third portion will not be given to the disclosure. Why? Because you are drug inspector, concerned drug inspector, taking directly samples from the manufacturing unit. So that is why there will be no investigation carried out, and if the sample reported as a not of standard quality, so he will move the application. Again, challenging takes place, right, by the manufacturer, right? So that's why this sample portion 3 will be used for the challenging purpose, by the concerned manufacturer. So before the challenging or before to the investigation, this both sample portion will be hold or in the custody of the concerned drug inspector. वो जिम्मेदारी होती है. So you might have learned about the working procedure. Now tell me, what is the role of the drug inspector? Drugs inspector appointed under section 21, right? Under section 21 of the Drug and Cosmetic Act. Drug inspector appointed under section 21 of Drug and Cosmetic Act. Drug and Cosmetic Act 1940. Right? So what drug inspector does? Drug inspector frees the sample, takes the sample, right? Takes the sample on form 17 and sends the sample. After taking sample, sends sample to the government analyst in the form 18 to government analyst, right? And if the drugs found doubtful quality, freezes drugs in the form 15. If suppose drugs reported not of standard quality, if the drugs reported spurious, spurious का बहुत 3 definitions है. I will discuss in separate video, right? So not of standard quality or spurious or misbranded will be these type of the drugs seized in form 16. So drug inspector pays fees, right? If fees not paid, form 17 will be issued. Form 17A will be issued, right? So this is the right working procedure of the drug inspector.